favorite time where we just kind of open it up for Q&A. And I'm going to kick it off here because I want to show, I do work for the fast track groups that they were just, Colleen just showed the slide on. So we get a lot of common questions. So let me share my screen and kind of go through what we hear typically, because you may have the same questions. All right, so this one, right? There's a blog post that came out a little while ago talking about saying farewell to Internet Explorer 11, and it freaked a lot of people out. They thought that Internet Explorer was going away altogether. And hopefully, as you learned today, it is not. It is part of the operating system. The support cycle follows the same as the operating system. So there is no plans that I'm aware of to remove Internet Explorer. We need it for compatibility. I think what my slide where it showed just how many years of compatibility we've supported with Internet Explorer, and we know that that's super important to keep going on. However, so what does this announcement mean? So what it means for these it's the key here is this whole web apps piece, right? So if you have users who are trying to use Internet Explorer to open up Word online or any of the Office products online, that's where it's going to get, that's what's going to stop working. You will also see the same in our portals. So your Azure portal, your Office 365 portals, those will not be able to be accessed in Internet Explorer as well. Those dates are not on here, but they are readily available. Just use your search, but coming soon. So that has produced lots of people needing to move to a modern browser, and that's one of the reasons that we wanted to do this summit. So any questions on these pieces? Okay, and then, all right, let me kill this. And then
also feel free to come off of mute if you can't type it as fast before we move on. Just come off of mute. We're happy to take it that way as well.
Yes. Back to my lab. Okay, so let me give you some of my favorite links here. I'm moving my windows around. And I'll put these in the chat. So one of the things that is really cool that we offer is end user adoption stuff. So, you know, it's oftentimes we implement things and then, of course, customers are looking for ways to educate their end users. Well, you can download this little zip and it's got some GIFs, email templates, videos, one-pagers, so you don't have to create stuff. So you can look like a hero. If there's no one in your org who's currently doing this, you can just look like you've got it all going on because we've already done it for you. So that's a great place. It's not localized in every language yet, but they are working on it. So check back here if you are interested in that sort of thing. The other thing we get a lot of questions on, and it's a bit complex, I'm not going to do a deep dive into it because it can start to hurt your brain after a while, but it's security zones. You do need to know if you have been relying on security zones with Internet Explorer, that the modern browsers, both Chrome and Edge, handle them slightly differently. Not for file downloads, but a lot of the other stuff, depending on what you have set, does. This is a blog written by Eric Lawrence. He works for Microsoft. It does the best job of trying to explain why that support is not there anymore and understanding what still works with it. So check that out if you rely on your trusted zones for some of the browser experience with Internet Explorer. You will want to know the differences when you move over. The other thing is, I always like to give this to customers because, you know, proxies. And there are a number of endpoints that Edge uses for different things. So be aware of these, pass that on as needed to your networking team, depending on what's going on, because a lot of times you're fighting something that is just being blocked and you didn't know it. The other thing we hear a lot about is the search, because so that kind of freaks some folks out on the whole Microsoft search, because they're all of a sudden seeing documents from other people. you can control that through conditional access. So this is a good blog that kind of walks you through how, if you want to kind of control the rollout with that, you can do so. And let me show you briefly in the lab, in my lab, excuse me, where this search is coming from. So that Office 365 search experience that you're seeing in your new tabs is coming from here. And it's over here in your configurations. And this is, and it does it for the whole tenant. So that's why the conditional access it can be useful if maybe you want some users to have it, you don't want it to be available for other users. You can control that. So that's a method of how to do that, because this does turn it on and off for the entire tenant. And just in case you're not familiar with it, so when I open this up in my lab, and here's what's interesting. This particular user, this worker 2 in my lab, is actually an F1 user. So if you're familiar with the different licensing for Microsoft, they are not allowed to have the full. They're not licensed for the full Office desktop. But anyhow, so you can see here that it'll show you different things, and this is all based on what's coming from the search. My lab is boring, but you can get the idea of where that's coming from. We do get that question quite a bit. And with that, I think, let me double check. Yes, that's all. Oh, and here I am using the vertical tabs. This is what it looks like. And the benefit is that you can still read everything even when you open up a bazillion of them. You can still read the 50-some tabs you may have open if you work like me. So, and then I just also like to point out, this is how I use the profiles. So here's my corporate one, here's my personal one, and these are my lab tenants. So if I want to jump into my lab tenant, it'll just open up a brand new browser. See how my shortcuts changed as well, because I've got sync going on, and now I can just jump directly into, say, Azure, and it's going to sign in not as my Microsoft account, because that's not particularly useful, but it's going to sign in as my admin and my tenant. So I always like to point that out, because a lot of us have different identity for different functions within the tenant, and this is one way you can handle it. So, all right, that is my quick review of what is going on. And there we go. So we want to open it up for questions. Come off mute. What do we have? Anything in the chat? I'm going to turn on together mode. Hopefully I'm on. There we go. So
post your surf high scores in the chat if you'd like.
That's right. There was someone who had like 3,000 something meters I saw earlier during the piece.
So it looks like Linda has her hand up, and I think that was a question about Chrome from the chat.
Yes, I do. I've got a couple of quick questions, hopefully pretty brief ones. The first question was regarding Chrome browser cloud management. Does it actually play a role in getting Chrome on the devices themselves, or do you still have to rely on things like Intune or Config Manager or whatever to do that? The second question I have is, sorry, I'll just get them out of the way, and then I'll be good. Second question I have is, do you find that your users need to be signed into Chrome with their Google accounts? Because currently in my environment, we discourage that practice, but certainly I can see where that might be useful if you're using Google's own admin dashboard to manage it.
Awesome. So yep, two quick answers. So the first is it doesn't have anything to do with the install, so you still install however you want. whether that's through Chrome, Intune, or just manually downloading it. So that's a really great point, is that this is even if your users go and download it. So if your users install it into their user profile, because Chrome doesn't need admin rights to install there, it will still take over if you set the local machine key. And the second is, it doesn't matter if they're logged in or not. I'm not logged into any of mine. It just shows me as profile 1 in my lab when I look through them. In my work environment, most of our users don't sign in, but they're allowed to if they want to sync stuff back and forth. And you will see that in the Cloud Console. You'll see that they've logged in and they have a profile. It'll also do multiple profiles. So if either they have multiple profiles or multiple users use the shared computer, you'd see all of those listed next to the machine.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
What else? We still have quite a few folks hanging out. I'm sure that there's some more lingering questions out there. Got another one in chat about Chrome. Tips on managing Chrome version, forcing user to update to the latest.
So for my environment, we manage it 2 ways. So we have the Chrome auto updater still turned on, and we don't set that setting in there, which Chrome should update daily, so long as you can get back to the Chrome site. We also use Patch My PC to update them. We do, I want to say a daily sync with Patch My PC, but I actually don't do the patching part of SCCM anymore at my organization, so that may have changed.
And if you have a particular way that you're managing that, please let us know. Come off mute, put it in the chat. What are your tips for moving people away from Chrome and over to Edge, right? That's the $1 million question. So a couple things I can comment there, because Fast Track does help with that in setting up default browser and how you can help ease that transition for end users, because people can get pretty passionate about their browser. To really force it, that generally comes from the security team in my experience, or leadership. But a lot of times by showing some of these cool features, users will start to self-adopt because there is so much interesting pieces that they can use that ties directly in. That whole search thing can really get a user into Edge and using Bing as well, because that's what's driving that search under the covers. So those would be where I would do, yeah. Surf, is more fun than the Dino game. So yeah. Dino, I'm saying that wrong.
I had a quick question. Is there any, I don't know if this is going to be even possible to answer, but is there anything on the roadmap for Edge in regards to mobile application or MEM and it being utilized on Windows 10? So basically just having a managed browser on Windows 10 on an unmanaged machine.
I think that's for me. Yes, so I'm trying to piece apart your question a little bit. So mobile Edge can be managed in mobile via Intune now, and you're asking about desktop management.
Correct.
Or
so you can manage it currently on iOS and Android, but it's not able to be managed at this point on Windows 10 or other such platforms.
The desktop version of Edge?
Correct.
No, it's fully MEM support. You can fully manage Edge in MEM, Intune and SCCM. Maybe I'm not understanding your question. I apologize.
So basically having the browser sandboxed and managed as you would. So when you manage it on iOS or Android, it's completely segregated as part of a work profile, and you can delete data or completely remove the app, right? So looking for more, if that is ever even possible in the future with Edge on Windows.
I will have to follow up.
Sorry, I guess the question doesn't make a lot of sense.
I'm so sorry. I thought Matt was asking something else related to that as well. I'm sorry. I'm not understanding. Let me put my contact information in the chat, and then we'll go from there. For anybody else whose questions that I'm not being able to answer, because I think there's a couple, feel free to follow up with me. And this is also helpful to understand where we have a gap in our documentation that I can help fill, to make sure, because you likely aren't the only one who has a question like that. So Nick, I apologize. Please send me an email and we'll have a conversation.
And we have a question. If I have Hyper-V installed, can I still use AppGuard?
I need to ask my AppGuard expert, and I have asked him through IM, but I believe he's on a call, so I will have to follow up with an answer to that.
All right, and then Joe's reminding you were going to maybe you had any updates on the enterprise mode site list with the shared cookie.
Yeah, so I think what I was confusing was we do have the ability to import cookies, and you can add IE cookie import, yeah, for Win 10, which I don't believe is the same thing that you are asking. So I don't. I'll have to follow up on that. Yeah, here's the import cookie policy. I'll paste this in, but I don't think that fully answers your question.
And then we've got another question. Will Edge one day be installing in the x64 program files instead of the Win32?
Yeah, so that's a question that everybody loves to have, and I do have the answer in my inbox because that gets a little tricky. So hold on 1 second, please. If you want to go on to the next question, then that'd be great.
All right, and then the other one is you have an environment with both Google and Microsoft. Is there an option to have multiple profiles syncing with the same Microsoft account? So I'm not sure. So you're trying to sync a Google profile with a Microsoft account? I'm not sure if I'm totally understanding that one. So I can talk a little bit about just the whole, the way that you need to think about this whole profile thing. Is all tied in with Azure AD or your Office 365 user identity. So it depends. You know, you're not gonna be able to do Google identity in there because they're two different identity sources, right? One's is sourced with Google and the one is sourced with Microsoft. So you won't be able to necessarily cross the streams there, yeah, I don't know if I don't know if that would be possible. Certainly, I mean, one cool thing, like, you know, your extensions will, like, if you've installed extensions, you can configure that in the sync. I like that in my lab because I've got my little LastPass browser extension. So as I bounce between machines in my lab, I still have all my passwords there. It just syncs automatically. So that's one aspect. So I think you might consider looking at sync and seeing what you might be able to do there creatively between passwords. History is now coming. I don't think I'm familiar enough to know what syncing with Google will get you, because, you know, I'm just not working in that element. Let's see, someone's got a question. Matthew's got a question about deploying the built-in Edge app within Intune. It's a way to suppress the toast notifications on install, or only when packaged as a Win32 app. I don't know that off the top of my head. Anybody?
Do you mean like the first run experience, or which toast notifications?
No, so when you if you make a required install from Intune to the device, you get the toast notifications on the device, like the built-in Windows toast notifications. So I was just curious if you can suppress them with the built-in app, like if you create a new application in Intune, instead of building a Win32 app, the built-in Edge that Donna was showing us, if we can suppress those notifications using that. Does that make sense? Or
I'm
Yeah, I
going to
think
pull up my Intune environment real fast. I'll come right back to you on that one, and because I have an idea about what you're talking about. Someone else may know as well, but I'll bring it up in a minute.
Just a big generality that we are seeing a lot of people choose to package things up as Win32 apps because you can have more, you can control the experience a little bit more. Like Configuration Manager, you'll have more levers and such that you can utilize than if you're using some of the built-in stuff with Intune. I mean, remember that Intune is supposed to make it simple, not have to do all this fancy configuration. But if you still have a need for that, there's nothing wrong with packaging things up as Win32 apps.
Gotcha. Thanks.
All right, let's see what else. People liking our content. Joe's got some stuff.
I just want to follow up. The link I just posted in there, Colleen, was the settings that I was actually asking about. It looks like it's new for version 87, but there's no way to actually use the site list manager to put those settings in place in the XML file.
Yeah, and I just don't know if we have plans to add that to the site list manager.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you know if there's another way to do it outside of that, except for editing the file manually?
I don't,
Okay.
So I see a question about, I'm sorry, about Password Manager and the security of it. We're in the middle of updating some documentation on the security of it. So if there's anything specific that you are questioning, I'll post the documentation on our Password Manager now. But look for updates on specific from a security perspective. But it's not shared with us, you know, like I said in my presentation.
Okay, so I've got Intune up. I'll share my screen on the well, if I can get, man, this may go poorly. Let's see, which would be normal, right? Okay, Chris, confirm. Can you see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Okay, cool. So, all right, so to the person asking the question about the toast notification. So on a Win32 app, on the assignments, you've got the option for the group that you've assigned to change the toast notification here. So you can tell it to hide. So I'm assuming this is what you're asking, is if you packaged up Edge as Win32 and used this, if that would actually suppress the notification versus using the other method to use the built-in Edge app here. Is that what you're after?
Yeah, I was just seeing. So I knew about the Win32, but the organization I'm working with, they don't want to have to keep updating the Edge deployment. You know, obviously auto updates, but they just wanted to be able to deploy Edge with the built-in, but yet still suppress it. So if it's not, if there's not a way to do that, that's totally cool. I was just curious to see if anybody had any little tips to tie it.
Go back to the assignment here and make sure that that it's not an option that comes up afterwards. Okay, so yeah, so there is no option on the assignment here to suppress the toast, and so then it would just need to be something in the deployment, in the built-in deployment within Intune, it looks like. So Colleen or Edge team, does that make sense? What he's looking for here?
Yeah, I'll have to follow up on plans forward there.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, and Linda had a question. Anyone know of a way that you can have Chrome or Edge selectively save cookies from certain sites upon session close?
That is honestly an Eric Lawrence question. He is the cookie expert for both Chrome and Edge and IE. I'm sure 5 other browsers. If you can reach out to me, Linda, I put my contact information. I can connect you with Eric. I don't know if in his, I think you put in his blog post. I don't know if in his blog post it has contact information. So.
I think that's all the questions in the chat. What else we got going on? Quiet group.
We're just so good, we answered every question.
Dinner already. Thanks for joining. The ultimate answer is 42. Well, I'll take if I'll just put in a shout out to the AppAssure folks. If you haven't used them, that's a pretty awesome service, and they work on just about everything at this point. I believe we've got some folks on the call who've actually taken stuff through them. If they want to speak about their experience, in all honesty, that's just fine. Yeah, they're like, at least when I talk to the team, they're like, yeah, bring it on. We'll take a shot at it. So especially when you're trying to configure IE mode, right? Because that can be like kind of, if you've got an old site and you're not quite sure what IE mode or how you can get that to function correctly in IE mode, they're really good at that. So as we're talking browsers, that's a good one to bring to them. Super easy and totally free. That's how much Microsoft wants you to use Edge. They're paying for it. All right, there's a question on the new tab group policy. You want to give us exactly what you mean there?
Margie, it looks like you had that question. Are you still here?
What was the question on the new tab stuff?
We don't have any info on it yet.
Yeah.
I know I've experienced not a good experience with it when I was trying to work with it.
Okay, so it says trying to set it similar to IE11. I know that whenever we were trying to configure that, I was trying to configure it in general. I remember messaging Colleen actually about this. And I think the issue at the time was that the ADMX template for Edge had not come out yet. And so, but it wasn't obvious that that wasn't the case. So in like group policies or even in the registry, it wasn't obvious that there was that new Edge had new registry locations to configure those things, and that the new Edge GPOs were different than the old Edge GPOs. And so I know trying to configure it within Intune, especially the Edge policies in Intune were still legacy Edge. And by the way, those are still there. So be careful to use the correct ones there. But
Microsoft Edge is what you're looking for. If you go under Edge, there'll be a legacy Edge policy.
Yeah. So I know at the time it was difficult, but I would assume that the new policies have that stuff as well.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys can hear me now, but
yes.
So it's mainly that IE11, the new tab, this specific policy I threw in there. It's not. There's a pretty much says recommended version of this policy does not work currently. And there's no timeline or any that nature. And this is probably one of the only items left, like the restore and startup. And there's a few other policies you can gimmick around as recommended and have a relatively close to what the folks who want that type of experience. But this policy is that would be replicating the new tab, and it does not work as recommended. And there's no timeline if there's even plans in a sense to continue this as a recommended or not.
So we are working on the wording recommended, and there is work happening on the new tab page that should come, soon. That's not very helpful to you, as the team is still. We really had a meeting on this, I think, Tuesday, as the team is still designing. So we do know that there's a little bit more work needed for new tab page policies, recommendation, that type of thing. And I'm looking at my email, which is why my talking is a little jarred there.
No, thank you.
Yeah, sorry. We are aware, and it's being worked on. Since I'm off mute, Jeff, to follow up on your x86 64, no, we're not going to be doing it. We're not 64-bit Edge will continue to use x86 directory. Yes. As of today, January 29th.
All right, we have another question. IE11 on 20H2 seems to have lost MSRDP client shell class. I'm not familiar with that, so I can't.
Yeah.
What were you trying to do with that, James? What's like the use case?
That may need to be a support request to follow up on, James. That if we're not able to answer that here, I don't think so. Filing a support request on that might be the best route.
And then the other thing to keep in mind too is I always ask the question, what is it you're trying to do with it? Because a lot of times we are dragging all this old legacy stuff forward, and that's been replaced by a different way to accomplish the same thing. So always consider not dragging all your settings, but ask the question, what are we trying to do here from a business perspective, from an end user experience perspective? That's really going to help you migrate much more efficiently and effectively, and keep you, because you don't want to drag something over that we end up deprecating, and then you got to go through it all over again. But really think about what you're trying to create, and ask the questions that way, and you may get a much better answer, in my experience.
And I know I'm still outstanding on the Hyper-V question with AppGuard, and I believe we're going to have to follow up on that.
So I always like to ask, did anyone have any aha moments here today where like you got that little bit of nuggets? It may have just been an offhand thing in somebody's presentation, but you're like, oh, I didn't know I could do that, and solving some sort of a problem. That's always good for us to know what these little nuggets are, plus to get them on the recording.
I liked your Edge internals.
Yeah, right.
There.
I don't understand all the things that are in that page, but it's kind of cool.
Mine has a bunch of auth errors in it right now, and so I've got to go figure out what's going on there. But I like that, and I mean, just even the Edge URLs link there is great, just to know what all of them are. I've poked around at the looking at like Edge : policy. That one's a great one because you can see what policies are applied to your machine. And looked at those things, and then the enterprise mode site list one. But there's so many URLs. Like I haven't dug through all those, so I'm sure there's some more there as well. Looks like there's lots of internals ones. Those are kind of neat.
Yeah, I think this stuff is probably for like web developers would find super interesting, because I didn't understand a lot of what was in some of those tabs. But it is interesting to just see how complex an application it actually is. And a lot of those URLs probably work the same in Chrome, because remember, we're sharing the same code base. So there's a lot of good. If you find a good nugget there, try it over in Chrome. Of course, start with Chrome, not Edge, but you may uncover some. I don't know. I guess I would open Chrome and see if we do Chrome :// we'll get the same thing.
And Colleen, if you can pass on to the dev team, I've never really been a fan of multiple browsers and stuff. Like I've got to support the IE and Edge at home. At work, and so it's just easier just to always just use those. And so even at home, I never put Chrome or Firefox on, or never used them as my daily driver anyway. And when Edge came out, I said, I'm going to give it a shot, and never looked back. And so it's a fantastically just amazing tool. And I know that it started from Chrome and worked its way, but the fact that it's so feature rich and it just works. I love all of there's just really nothing I dislike about it. And I think it's just phenomenal. So well done.
Thank you, Adam. I will share that with the team. Like I said, I've been on the team since IE9. I have seen things. I just leave it at that. So this has been a great transition as well. So I really appreciate it. I do have to drop. Thank you so much for allowing me from the product group to come and join and listen and present. And please follow up if you have any questions. Julie, you're awesome. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I do have one complaint about Edge. Colleen, I can always tell her later, but the fact that it's named the same as the legacy Edge. Why couldn't they just, Credge, that would have been fun. It just is, it's confusing, even when you're looking at settings, because you're still seeing the old Edge in there.
Yeah, but we know that Microsoft is really name change averse. So, it lines up. Of course they wouldn't change the name when they,
Well, you mean like O365, M365?
Yeah, they're probably going to call it like Desk 365 or something next, or.
Oh, they'll wait for when they hit 100 or something, they'll change it to like Edge Century or something and add some sort of thing to the end of it.
It'd be like Azure Office or something, or some crazy crap. How can we, 1 second.
I don't know. My favorite is Tide Pod Edge. I think Daniel Radcliffe tweeted that at one point, that someone in his org called it that. And once you see that, you can't unsee it. That the icon of Edge looks like a Tide Pod. So Jeff asked the question if there's a list of features that we're putting in Edge that are not included in Chrome. I'm sure that, I don't know if you've got, there's nothing I can share, but our account teams and stuff, we're probably happy to share what we call our compete with that, but that's not something I have or do. So I don't know if Chrome does vertical tabs. I'm telling you, that and sleep. Well, they do have something similar to sleeping tabs. I forget what they call theirs. But I haven't seen anything in Chrome on the vertical tab thing. Probably the biggest advantage is on that security piece of things and the Microsoft search. Those are the two that are, because the security stuff, you can get it in box. That DLP is totally in box with Edge, whereas you're going to have to do extensions and such with Chrome. Makes it a really good package in the whole security footprint of any organization. We all know how people love to cut and paste out of a browser, and when you can control that, that's super powerful.
You need to make it Snagit aware or something so that it grazes the screen when you try to circumvent.
Does anyone else know of any differences? Oh, there we go. It's got so the single sign-on account, I'm pretty sure Chrome doesn't support that because that's all tied to Azure Active Directory. And the browser virtualization, I don't know enough about that, but I would guess that we've got a tighter integration since that's part of the OS.
Oh, Julie, we did something with Sso and Chrome. I remember what it was. You list the sites you want to SSO, and then it just works. I guess we did it on our intranet site.
Okay, and that was on-prem credentials or Azure Active Directory credentials?
Ooh, gosh,
It could
it's
be the
probably
same.
Sam.
It's the
Probably
same.
Sam. Yeah.
Sometimes it's not. That's why I asked that.
I know that the dev team came to me and said, hey, our users keep getting prompted to sign in. Can we implement this policy? We enter in the web, the address, and then the credentials just single sign on into the application inside the intranet. That's how it worked.
And yes, Carl, we are recording everything, including this. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna try to figure out how to, I hope I can get this recording to you because, Microsoft tenant restrictions, but we'll have to get creative here to get that over to you so you can split it up.
You just have to make me a Microsoft account. I mean, here we go.
We are hiring. In fact, my team is hiring. If you're in the Charlotte or Texas area, I think it's getting posted today. I'll put it up on my Twitter when that does. We're looking for a full-time Get Modern SME, so knowing stuff about Edge and Intune and Autopilot and Windows 10 and Office 365 deployments. That's us.